Today is Tuesday, April 17th, 2018. This is MMA Junkie Radio's pre-show, the show before the show. I am Goes. That's Dan Tom, Danny Okers, and George. I think went to the restroom.
We're back, baby.
Oh yeah, it's a normal show. We are back.
We're back.
We got phone lines.
I can hear myself again. Is it somebody's headset?
You can hear yourself? What do you mean?
I did it first.
Oh.
I can still. Does somebody have volume up, or I don't know? I can hear myself. I have to set it back
maybe George. I just muted his computer.
My computer is quiet.
I don't hear it anymore.
Yeah.
That was it.
That was it?
Yeah, we're back.
Do you
Now I
want to
can
tell
hear myself
everyone what
again.
happened yesterday?
Yeah, fill us in.
Well, what had happened was that I think it's somebody's headset because I can still hear it. I walked in the pouring rain and was notified that all of the connections between the place that I broadcast our show from and the rest of the world are going to be going down around 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific.
Gotcha.
And I said, seems like we're going to have trouble doing the show. And he goes, yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to do your show. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, you should probably call Marissa. And so I called, and she said she just found out too. And this is about, what time did I call you yesterday? 11:30? It was like 11:30. And nobody knew before 11:30 that we weren't going to have a show.
So what were you doing yesterday during the show? Because I know you were listening.
Cause I had to put the pre-record in, so I had to edit the pre-record again.
Oh, by the way, did we get the yesterday's audio or not yet?
Yeah, he was working on it,
Okay.
and then his computer froze.
Coming up in a
Zoomed
minute.
right afterwards.
Oh, so you put it in while we're doing the show?
I'll have both episodes for you as soon as this show's over.
How do you know, Danny?
Yeah, how do you know, Danny?
Because
I've always wondered that.
I'm in control of it.
It's very, very sneaky.
Did you get George? Did you get the Beat It Nerd special? It's
I did not.
it's the whatever Michael Chandler got yesterday with all the espresso shots in it and everything.
Oh, 5. What was it again?
Who-
5 espresso, but what was the drink?
Who produced it?
What?
Beat It
Yeah,
Nerd?
produced
What does that mean?
That's what he calls whatever the drink was that Michael Chandler had
Oh, it's
yesterday.
called Beat It Nerd?
Yeah, the Beat It Nerd special.
I didn't know that.
Don't ask for the Beat It special. It's a completely different drink.
All right, guys, we're coming up in 10. Stand by.
Do you know much about the whole Starbucks racist thing?
No.
Just the two blacks were hanging around.
This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMA Junkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is gonna be a little bit bumpy.
Alright, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Goes. This is what we do and why we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yeah!
The MMA Junkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space,
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
we've solidified our combat communication stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
With the use of MMA Junkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology, MMA Junkie Radio, commence transmission.
They almost landed on a freeway.
Live from MMA Junkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Goes.
From the fight capital of the world inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, you are listening to the MMA Junkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes, or his co-host. To my left, the fight analyst, Dan Tom. Back east, he's back. Danny Otto. What's up, guys?
Good to be back. All together.
I agree.
We missed...
Except
Morning.
a little... Hi, Danny.
Huh?
What?
Hi.
Well, I was going to say we missed Danny yesterday, and we missed callers.
True.
And now everybody's
What'd you
back
miss more,
together.
Danny or the callers? Give me an answer, firm.
I guess Danny, because I thought it was going to be more of an issue with the callers, but actually we went longer than we normally do yesterday, and we took less breaks. And I was shocked when I looked at the clock, and we were already like an hour in. It felt like 15, 20 minutes.
Who'd you miss more, Danny or the callers?
I miss Danny because it feels like us four we're like the Ghostbusters. You know, we're a strong team. But I will say with a caveat, I'm really excited to hear what the callers bring today.
I miss the callers. I wanted to hear their reaction to
A lot to react on.
those fights,
Yeah.
especially Gaethje and Poirier, and especially what's next. What is next for Khabib? You know, we kind of touched on Ramadan, if Conor comes back, if Ferguson's not out for as long as we think he is, Alvarez versus Poirier. You know, the division, man, it's on fire right now, and we got one more fight that I think has a say in not necessarily who's next, because both of these guys are coming off a loss, but who may be in that second wave after Poirier, Alvarez, and of course McGregor, GSP, Ferguson, all those being possibilities as well. But that's the Kevin Lee and Edson Barbosa fight, which, by the way, we did a preview yesterday, a video, and the odds were up to -145 for Kevin Lee, plus 125 for Edson Barbosa. So a little bit of Kevin Lee money coming in. I expect it to either even out or maybe Kevin Lee just gets some love. I don't know. Both guys are coming off losses. However, I believe Lee's loss wasn't as demoralizing as Edson's. Edson had a lot to gain because, again, much like Iaquinta, hey, I've been in there with the best. I felt this guy. You know, I'm okay. There's no need to retire. There's no need to do anything except prepare myself for a second battle if it should come. You know, if you get a chance to fight Khabib again. Edson, he was able to stop some takedowns, but once Khabib did have his way, Edson got smashed. Lee submitted to Tony Ferguson, but he actually was winning the fight at some portions of the time, had a bad weight cut, and was fighting the staph infection. So I feel like both guys coming off a loss, one guy can just feel a little bit better about, I think, his performance, and that's Kevin Lee. So they're both going in there with losses. We'll see which one's able to shake it off. Plus, Lee fought 1 month before Edson Barbosa, so that's just one more month to decompress, chill, relax, prepare, and be back. So I'm really interested in that fight. And then, of course, them adding Frankie Edgar versus Cub Swanson, which I have other thoughts on Edgar fighting so soon after his loss. KO lost to Ortega. Putting that aside, hey, the fight's settled. It's done. And I'm into it, man. I'm into those 1-2. And I looked at the main card. Some really, really, interesting bouts. Thiago Santos versus David Branch. One of those guys has to start making a move. Chase Sherman, who we talked to, versus Justin Willits. Brett Johns versus Aljamain Sterling. Dan Hooker versus Jim Miller. So really solid main card for a UFC Fight Night. We'll be talking about that card with Yves Edwards from Fox Sports. He will be on the desk along with Megan O'Leary and Jimmy Smith. So we'll talk to him about these fights, this card, and that'll come up here in about 25 minutes because our phones are back. So not only will we have guests, we can take calls 866-522-2846. Also, the other guest will be Matt Brown, who was supposed to be on yesterday's show, and he, of course, was supposed to fight Carlos Condit this past Saturday at UFC on Fox 29. He couldn't. He tore a ligament in his knee, already had the surgery, already on the mend, sounding positive, like he'll be back stronger than ever. But in the meantime, Alex Oliveira stepped in and defeated Carlos Condit, who, by the way, already put out a statement saying, could it be that my time has passed? Although he did say other things that were positive in his social media post. Hey, I'm having fun. I'll bleed for you all. I don't feel like I'm done. He just had that glaring quote, that if you follow UFC President Dana White, he feels like when someone says something along the lines of that maybe they are done. But I don't know. Something tells me Condit can still be into it as long as he's strong up here. So anyway, lots to talk about. And we invite you again, 866-522-2846. Plus, NHL playoffs. The Vegas Golden Knights have a chance to sweep the LA Kings. There's something, man, about just 4-0 to a team that's recently won the Stanley Cup a few times. That would be a huge scoreboard for an expansion franchise like Vegas. And I think that could be the creation of a little bit of a rivalry. You know, the Ducks and the Kings have one. I'm sure the Sharks and the Kings have one. I don't follow hockey that close.
Sharks and Kings are.
Do they?
Like
I could see Vegas. If Vegas made a big deal out of it and swept them, I could see them getting under the Kings fans.
It's already started a little bit.
And that could be something going forward.
In hockey, it's really big because it's a more physical game. So the less games you have in a playoff series, the better for your team. You know, as where baseball, yeah, you get your break. You know, you get the rest a little bit longer than maybe the other team, but it's not as big of a deal. So baseball isn't as physical as hockey is.
By the way, have you heard attendance is down in baseball stadiums? Aside from the bad weather that's been going out there, like there's been a lot of postponements of games, but aside from that, baseball attendance is down. Last week or 2 weeks ago, somebody was telling me NASCAR's really down.
Yeah.
And basketball is up. So let me tell you these rough numbers, because I went in there and I decided to Google and study this a little bit.
Okay.
And there was about 3 or 4 sources out there, you know. But it seems like football is just under 40%. So in other words, if you polled 100 people and said, what's your favorite sport? It was 43% a few years ago, but it's down to about 37%. That's according to one source. So we're going to say roughly 40 or 37, I guess. Then the other ones were really close. It was kind of easy to remember. Basketball is 11% at number 2. Baseball is 9% at number 3. And soccer is 8% at number 4. I couldn't believe that. I thought hockey was going to come in. It's always been part of the Big Four. I'm not shocked that soccer is – I'm sorry. I'm not as shocked now that I think about it that soccer came in at number 4 because soccer's so big worldwide.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they actually specified MLS soccer, but they just said soccer. And if you're sitting at home rooting for Real Madrid, Manchester United, Juventus, or MLS, then that's a broad number. You know,
or
this
countries.
is a very diverse. Yeah, this is a very diverse country that could just be identifying with any of those teams. But soccer was right on the heels of baseball, and baseball, I was reading, is down to start things off.
This is just in the U.S., right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of weird, especially when you think about the U.S. not qualifying and all that. You would think their numbers would be down.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like a once every 4 year thing, but you're right. That does take a hit. And in fact, Jurgen Klinsmann, the former coach, said that's going to set back the USA years, he said. But that's a whole other subject. So then in digging into baseball, and the only reason I was reading this because I was like, well, where does MMA sit? But I couldn't find anything that really told me much about MMA other than I've just always heard it's a slow, continual rise. But one of the reasons is because the younger generation just doesn't have the tolerance for these longer games, and replay in every sport has drawn out the game. They don't have that patience. Kids don't go out and play. Do you remember when we were growing up? I know we're a different generation, but it was kind of like a couple phone calls or a couple knocks on the door, and you could have maybe 4 versus 4. Hey, right field's closed.
Yeah.
Someone's pitching, someone's catching, or you'd make someone from their own team catch. You'd have a shortstop and a left fielder. You know, you could alter the rules but still get some form of baseball in. Sometimes you'd get lucky and go 6-on-6, still close maybe right field, or play kids from another neighborhood or whatever, and same goes for football. Now it's like 2-on-2, you know, and like kids just aren't going out. They're not playing. Yeah. They're not learning the rules. They're sitting at home. And they have so many things at their hand with incredible video games, realistic video games, Netflix, Hulu. So the ability to watch movies that just recently came out, or are classics, or documentaries, or movies from other countries that no one's ever heard about. So they just don't want to, and plus obesity. But anyway, I wonder if baseball is concerned a little bit. They should be. But basketball was the number 2, baseball was 3, soccer was 4. I don't know where hockey was. I dove into it for about 45 minutes, and I said enough is enough. I think I got my answer. But still, football just reigns supreme. On the way home, I heard Luke Thomas's show, and he was saying that he came across some numbers where Bellator, the one with Chandler, 197, early numbers were in the 250 range. That is low, guys.
Yep. Yeah.
That is low. The UFC numbers were 1.7 million, which I think was an upkick from recent, but still down from when they first made their mark. And what more do fans want? I mean, Gaethje versus Poirier, you got to be kidding me now. Of course, it was also going up against NHL and NBA, which I just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
You know, had some good games, but still, I think every Fox fight card for the last few years has gone up against something. So I don't know, but a little scary, you know. Hopefully, we're making new fans. Hopefully, the sport's making new fans.
I think overall, everything is going to have some sort of drop because there's just so many new things. Like last night, you and I were talking, and I think I gave you like 2 shows, and then you hit me back with like 2 shows. And I was into both of them that you said, and I just don't have the time to do them all. But I just feel like there's just like new apps and shit. Like, I think everything's just going to take some kind of a drop.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I've seen a lot of metrics floating around that everything's taking a drop, like what George originally said. And I think I even saw a metric. I saw the Bellator one too as well, which is disturbing. And then I saw the last 6, I believe, Fox shows. And I do think, yeah, there was like maybe like a point or 2 up from the last one, but all like the last 6 have went on a downward drop. So it's been a downward trend. And like I was saying on yesterday's show, they've all those 6 were below the 2.0 mark, which is their usual standard historically, and for what they seem they like to hit.
And you notice every 2-3 months we go over this, and then we say, how can they promote the fighters better, and how can we do this? And we'll toss out some ideas, but then we get so immersed in the sport that we don't really revisit to see if any of this has been done. I don't know. I still see countdowns go. Bellator's got a countdown, and I wouldn't have known this if Angelo, Frank Mir's coach, hadn't sent it to me.
Yeah.
I looked at it, and the first thing I go is 7:52. Okay, I got that. I got 7 minutes of 52, but I don't have it right now.
Yeah.
But I have it set up and queued and ready to go. So we'll see. We'll see if that can get me into it. But aside from on our site, I just wasn't getting told by any form of marketing or advertising, like radio show commercials, other banner ads. You know, doesn't have to be just MMA related, but perhaps ESPN or something. I don't see many commercials. If you don't remind people constantly of your product, it's just you are going to be going up against everyone's lack of how can I put it to you guys? Me personally, I'm distracted by the last thing you slip in front of me. All right?
Okay.
And that's why I have so many windows open, and that's why it takes me so long to get through a lot of my work because I'm easily distracted. I could be doing this right now, and if Juliet sends me something and says, this concert's coming up, I have a notification that pops up, and I go, oh, shit. And then I'll turn to goes and go, what were we talking about? You know, whatever.
Right.
That's how easily I can get distracted. Well,
Right.
same thing with Bellator. I mean, you got to do it. You got to fight till the end to get that person's attention.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or if you remind me, don't forget on Access TV, 2 undefeated guys are in the main event. You got to check it out. Well, I'll be there. But you got to remind me because if not, Bellator's going to give me. If Bellator doesn't give me, his recommendation of Drug Lords is going to give me. You see what I'm saying? It's like whatever you put in front of me, that's how I function. That's what I'm going to watch.
Right.
And there's just too many distractions out there. And I haven't seen much from, now that I think about it, from Bellator the last few years.
I agree with that, but also what you're saying, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you know what you're saying is it's easy to get distracted. That's not just you, though. I think there's an inundation happening. You kind of hit the point on why the numbers are flailing, which I didn't really think about. You were talking about sports and going out and interactivity, and why has that gone down? Well, it's just been a shift in the culture, right? Because even when I was a kid, I was probably the last legion of kids in the early mid '90s. I was knocking on doors to get kids to come out and play, but we don't have that anymore. Instead, like you just said, rounding back to this, we're getting inundated with all these things. To now, what you were just pointing to on your computer that's open right there, that countdown tab, remember when those used to be can't miss? Remember when we couldn't miss the weigh-ins? And this kind of ties into our daily debate that we had yesterday about the number per cards. And it was kind of a weird time to have that daily debate because we just had a big long card, but it was weird. It was a long card, but it was awesome fights that ended awesomely, right? Poirier versus Gaethje. But it was also a Fox one where it puts it in the middle of the day, so it kind of kills your whole day. And I don't know if at least I mentioned that part of the argument. I know I wanted to, right? Whereas we're coming off, what was the opposite example? 9 or fewer, which was what I argued for, but the last card we had that was 9 or fewer wasn't that great, right? Granted, it was UFC 223 that I'm talking about that dealt with a lot of things, so that sample size was a little skewed. But I guess the point is when we're getting inundated with all these shows, another topic we talk about, it makes it more missable. So, for example, a lot of people for that long card were going, even people that kind of cover the sport were like, oh, stepping away, I have to go. You got to go grab food. You have to do some kind of errand. We're all human beings. But so they're almost forcing us by inundating us. Even if you are watching it, George, and if you're not distracted and you are watching it, it's forcing you to take breaks because even as hardcores, whether we're the hardest of the hardcores, media, our jobs, all three, we're missing stuff that we never would miss before, and that's across the board. And that ties in with the numbers going down, right? These are all very connecting themes. So it's really interesting that you bring that up because you're right. I can't remember the last time I saw the countdown.
I just saw a commercial for the Ultimate Fighter. It's like it never ends, dude.
Wednesday, right?
Jeez.
I couldn't see.
The undefeated season starts this Wednesday.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
right?
I guess. Yeah, I didn't even realize that. Yeah, I didn't
But
realize that.
I'm not. I mean, I'm into it because I'm a DC fan. I like Stipe as well, but I know that they're gonna be very friendly. So the build up to the fight is just they already sold me when they made the build up to the fight. Two great fighters.
You think they'll be friendly?
Having a money fight. Yeah.
DC's got that like kind of swag to him where
But
he'll
Miocic
accept just about
doesn't.
anybody.
Miocic doesn't though. Miocic is a really nice guy. And what can you tell Miocic? You know, like whatever you tell him, all he has to do is go, come here, check this out. Read these names. I knocked them all out. You know, most of them in the first round. Ngannou, it didn't work out with Ngannou, but I got him, didn't I? So, there's really not much I don't think you can do to rattle Miocic just because of how much of a badass he is.
Yeah.
And he's just so easygoing. But the undefeated spin, I like that. Something just about the word undefeated makes me think, hey, you know, like, not just two of these guys might come out of the season as potential superstars. Maybe 4 or 5 or 6. Like, they must have got to this undefeated point for something. But going back to Dana White Contender Series, it's that instant gratification. 5 fights. Quick. Intimate setting. And at the end, you got a contract. Yep. That's what I want to see. I don't know if I'm into, like, fucking 10 weeks. And what happened? Who won in the first round? And why? Oh, so he's injured and a little bit of drama and the coach's challenge. It's played out.
Again, back to our point, to more digestible content is what you want. That's what I liked. I think a lot of our callers sentiment the same things that you just did as well. They like the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series, right? It's short, it's digestible. You don't have to waste your whole evening. You can work your full day. You can have dinner. You can watch your TV shows and still digest a full thing. You know, Dana White Tuesday Night Contenders. That's just like
it was 2 hours.
It's very doable. Very
5
doable.
fights, and someone got to get into. Well, actually, sometimes they did 2, right? And one week they had no one. And 2 or 3 times they had 2.
Yep.
And we've already seen a few of those come out, and boom, they're doing something like Sean O'Malley's the guy I point to. I think Alejandro Perez may have been one of those as well.
Do you watch The Ultimate Fighter for the fighters, the coaches,
the drama,
or the fights?
Yeah. No, I mean, of course, the fights, but I'm not one of those that fast forwards to the fight.
Pick one, though. Why do you watch it? Because if they just went, tonight these guys are fighting, you probably wouldn't tune in, right?
The fight narrowly edges out the drama.
I tune in for the coaches. That's why I tune in, because I want to see that's like my build up to their fight.
I'll tell you,
watching a long countdown series for me.
I might be the worst person to ask, but I'll tell you the last 2 I watched, and I was a tough noob, so I came on after the wave of the first one, and then enjoyed the the Matt Serra, or even the BJ Penn Pulver series, right? And the drama. It was probably more for drama at that time. And then I was probably honestly already fading out of it. But then what got me was the first season. I believe it was Amir Sadala season and Matt Brown, who we're gonna have on the show. That was the first one where they had to fight to get in the house, right? And they televised those, right? And that really sold me. And watching kind of Amir go through, and Matt Brown was another guy that caught my eye, and I was sold onto the characters, and that sold me onto that season. I tuned out till the very last season that took me, guys, was probably the gimmicky season, which was an awesome season. One of their highest ranking ones. That was the heavyweights. That was Kimbo, Roy. I had to see how that shook out. That honestly, and I'm a hardcore guys. You guys know I've been watching for the better part of a decade, not missing anything, and I've not been. there's been nothing that's drawn me into a tough. I only go back and watch them now if I have to study a fight for a fighter, and I'll go back and I'll only watch the fight.
Yeah, no, the fight is what gets me, but I am looking to see if there's any drama between the fighters and see if it spills out into Twitter, because I know there can be more of a build up to whatever is happening. And I know I'm not alone. It's just that enough of those fools don't call in and back me up, so I'm just kind of here on an island.
Okay.
But I watch a lot of the traffic reports, and I just see, like, Tavares, he went into a room and Bisping told him to get the fuck out of here. Like, that little story did well.
Yeah,
it also got retweeted,
well,
And so I don't know if a fight will come out of it or whatever, but people are just drawn. Oh, really? What happened? It turned out it wasn't that big of a deal. I think if you look at Karen Bryant's Instagram, she shows it was playful. It wasn't really as bad as it seemed, but Bisping's polarizing, and Brad's coming off an exciting win over Krzysztof Jotko.
But even if nothing comes out of it, he still attached his name to Bisping for a little bit, which
he did his job.
Creates media for him.
Yeah. Tavares did everything from getting the finish, making use of his mic time. What comes of it is what comes of it. But I mean, you can't. That's an A+ performance in my book, especially for Tavares.
Let's talk to Marco in Waco, Texas. What's up, Marco? How you doing?
Marco from Waco, ¿qué pasa, Vatos?
What's up, bud?
I want to dip in my toe in this TV conversation. So let me break it down like this. When it comes to this morning, interestingly enough, Stipe Miocic was on ESPN on the new show Get Up. He did an interview on a studio, and I'm scratching my head because he wasn't promoting the Ultimate Fighter. He talked about DC, he talked about Brock Lesnar, he talked about Conor McGregor, talked about his relationship with Dana. The Ultimate Fighter was never mentioned. So what is Stipe doing in ESPN? Just wonder, with all these rumors about ESPN.
Really? That's weird, because you'd think that with this particular week, it kicking off, there had to be some sort of a plug from him.
None whatsoever. And they never even brought it up. But he was there on the street. I saw they were doing a car wash with him, but he was just in that one show. Then when it comes to the Ultimate Fighter, I don't understand the concept of undefeated because, like those fights don't come for their record. So it's not like the last guy standing is going to be the last undefeated guy. If anything, everybody is still officially undefeated until the finale when they match them up. I mean, at least on the freaking Dana White Contender Series, there is consequences because it's an official fight. It goes on their official record. So I don't understand that part of the gimmick. I'm still going to keep out and watch the fights that people said are going to be interesting. And last but not least, my theory on the ratings when it comes to Fox is I noticed when they did the big push of those fights on their NFL games, when Fox make an effort to promote the fights and they talk about it a lot, the numbers were higher. I haven't seen too much about. I mean, we see the commercials on Netflix 1 and Netflix 2, but that is just a very niche, select kind of audience, and they don't even do it on their highest rating freaking programs like NASCAR or something like that. They always put it matching up with their USC programming. So I say it's the push hasn't been there on the part of Fox to put it on Big Fox more heavily, and that is why the numbers have dipped out a little bit. That's just my opinion. Peace out, dudes.
See you, bud. All right. Well, we got to go to break. I want to be on time with our friends from Fox. Yves Edwards will be calling in, and we'll be talking about UFC Fight Night 128. Thanks for the call, though, Marco. After the interview, we'll have some time here in the first hour if you all want to follow Marco at 866-522-2846. Stay close. We'll be right back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius 67 Rush 93.
fun, compassion, common sense. These guys have none of that. You listen to them, so you're no better. I am awesome, though. They are Gorgeous George and Goes.
The SEC now has a 24/7 home on SiriusXM. Hear from hosts like Peter Burns, Chris Childers, and more on SiriusXM SEC Radio, Channel 374, and on the SiriusXM app. That SiriusXM app houses the MMA Junkie Radio Show commercial-free and in HD quality. So download it, check it out, you'll dig it. All right, our next guest, Yves Edwards from Fox Sports, joining us now on the hotline. Yves, a few weeks ago we had a title fight. Last weekend we had a great fight with Gagey and Poirier. Can Edson Barbosa and Kevin Lee feel that momentum and carry that momentum into their fight, because this division's on fire?
They're going to have to, man, because that fight, especially the past 2 weekends, have been great. Last weekend was a fire fight, and I believe the style matchup of Kevin Lee and Edson Barbosa is built for fun. I mean, it's the modern-day striker versus grappler, but the thing about the modern day is that the grappler can strike and the striker can grapple, so it'll be fun.
Which fighter do you think is more important to stop the other one's offensive force? In other words, is it more important for Kevin to put an immediate stop to Edson and maybe take him down early, or is it more important for Edson to maybe not get his offensive firework power going and use his feet a lot, circle, not just be a standing target, so that he can frustrate Kevin and let him know that, hey, this fight's not going to the ground early?
Is that a trick question? Because unlike Edson, definitely has to stop Kevin Lee to be able to land those kicks, but Kevin's got to get the takedown, man. He has to, because those kicks to Edson Barbosa, I don't want to hold pads for that guy. He hits so hard and he's so fast. It's going to be hard to see his stuff coming at you. It's a trick question, I believe, but if you put a gun to my head and you make me tell you I have to answer, no, please don't give me that kid. But then I'm going to say Edson Barbosa has got to stop Kevin Lee from taking him down.
Actually, let me phrase it this way: when we just break him down into two, grappler and striker, all right, which party gets, in your experience, which party gets more frustrated? When a striker gets taken down, or when a wrestler is not able to get the fight to the ground? Have you ever noticed over your time which one of those feels more demoralized, at least early in the fight, when they're not able to get going with what they want to do?
Thank you for dumbing down the question for me, Goes, because that makes it so much easier. Yes, it's way more frustrating for the striker, I believe, to be taken down and molested for 15 minutes and not be able to get the positions that he wants to punch to. A grappler, it's a little less frustrating, I believe, because you're still mobile. You can still move. You still have opportunities to chase and grab. And, yeah, even if you're not successful with the takedown, you still have the opportunity to pull guard. At the end of it, you still have an opportunity to pull the fight to the ground if you can't force it there. But as a striker, if you can't get back to your feet, you're done. There's no, you're not striking off of your back. When you're striking off of your back, that's because of frustration.
Yves Edwards, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. He'll be working the Fox desk pre and post fight for UFC Fight Night 128. I'll fill in all those details at the end of the interview, but you got to check it out. Yves is great at breaking down these fights. He's one of the best in the business. Now let me turn it over to the real Goes. Goes, what do you have for Yves Edwards?
Yves,
oh, shoot, that was George? I'm sorry, man. You guys sound the same.
Well, thank you. I think. I want to talk a little bit about the co-main event, Frankie Edgar, Cub Swanson. This is a rematch, and I want to get your opinion on this. You've had a rematch before in your career. When you come across that, and you're the guy who won the first matchup, as you were in your rematch, we'll use Hermes Franca, does much have to change on your end going forward, especially the way that Frankie Edgar won that first fight? It was very dominating.
Yeah, it was completely dominant. I mean, the first round was competitive. Frankie figured out the takedown was all he needed, and he just went forward with that for the next 4 until he got the submission. But when you go back into a rematch, for me anyway, I would definitely look for the things that I was able to exploit in my opponent. see if he's fought anybody similar to me since then, and see if those things still exist. And if they do, just try to take advantage of them. But being in there with the guy, you have a much better idea of who that guy is and how he moves and how his body type works against yours. Hermes Franca, for example. I knew I was a taller guy. I believed I was the longer guy, but there was a couple of times that he threw some punches that I didn't feel were going to reach me. But he has ridiculously long arms. This is something you don't recognize until you're actually in there with that guy. Frankie's been in there with Cub, then vice versa. But Frankie, after the first round, the competition was very one-sided. So I believe Frankie still has that stuff in the back of his mind. That's still ingrained in his mental state, and he knows exactly where he needs to be in those positions. And I think he has a huge advantage going back into this, being that the fight was so dominant the first time through, and he's had that experience with this individual before.
Yves, I want to get your take on something that we were talking about earlier in the show, and it's kind of like this day and age in MMA, how different it was, say, if we go back 10 years ago. And if we were to go back to the middle of your career, let's say, if shows like UFC Tonight, if these pre-shows, post-shows, all this stuff was around back then, would you focus in on a lot of what the analysts have to say about your fight, what their reaction is before and after? Is that stuff that you would look into, or are those opinions that just kind of wouldn't matter to you?
Those opinions, so let's put it this way, Ghost. When I was fighting, UFC Tonight existed, the pre- and post-fight show existed, and all those things existed. I didn't know that they existed until I retired. I literally retired. I was sitting down watching some fights. A pre-fight show was on. I texted Joe Silva, and I was like, dude, is there an audition or a trial for that? Because I want to do that. And that's how I found out about it. A lot of fighters don't pay attention to – some fighters do, but a lot of fighters don't pay attention to the fact that of what people are saying about them on the pre- and post-fight show. I think, though, I truly believe that some of it is beneficial. You know, some good critique is out there sometimes. Some guys are going out there and they're giving – they're talking about what guys need to do to improve their game or what they could have done in this particular fight. And if guys could listen to some constructive criticism, take advantage of that, go back into the gym and work those things, that would definitely be helpful. But some people out there, you know, they don't want to hear anything that somebody else has to say when it's not positive. And when you can't take criticism, then you kind of get in your own way. So it's one of those things. Now that it exists, I really wish I did know about it in the past, because I might have been able to take some advice from some guys who don't really know me, but are scouting me and might be able to give somebody else an insight into what I'm doing that I don't see myself. So yeah, it's a good thing to have, and I think it's something that guys should definitely follow through with and pay attention to. But you can't be so sensitive that you can't take some criticism, man. You just can't do that. You're a fighter. Do you want to be a fucking fighter?
Yves Edwards, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. He will be working the Fox Sports Desk this weekend as an analyst alongside Jimmy Smith and host Megan O'Leary. And here are some times of their offerings for Friday and Saturday. There's a weigh-in show on Fox Sports 2 at 5 p.m. Eastern. On Saturday, pre-fight show on FS1, 7 p.m. Eastern. The prelims on FS1 follow at 8 p.m. Eastern. The main card on FS1 at 10 p.m. Eastern. And the post-fight show, FS1 again, 1 a.m. Eastern. All right, the fight analyst, Dan Tom. He's got a couple for Yves Edwards. What you got, Dan?
Geez, I was so guilty having that title when you have a guy like Yves Edwards on the program. Yves, I know I always talk to you about, you know, southpaws and breaking down fights, and obviously, you know, I have appreciation for your style. But speaking of that, you know, you were one of the guys in the lightweight division George was talking about. You know, it's such a popular division still to this day. And you're one of the guys I would always kind of go back and study when I was trying to look at, you know, when you're talking about looking at things in other people's games and trying to improve upon your own. But another guy I would look at, Yves, was Jim Miller, and he fights on the main card against Dan Hooker. And we've been seeing this turnover, man, that's hard for hardcores myself. You know, I mean, I always respect when people like yourself want to step away from the game. But as we've seen a lot of these names like Joe Lozon or Evan Dunham, for example, these staple names in the division that, you know, have had some rough outs lately. How do you see this one going between Jim Miller and Dan Hooker?
You know, this this is not an easy fight for either guy. But Dan Hooker's this young up-and-comer, and the game is changing some. Miller's going to have to dig in his bag of tricks, pull out some experience, and just do some things that we may have not seen him do before, because Dan Hooker can do it all. He's got good wrestling, especially for an Australian. He can box, he can kickbox, and his grappling is very solid. Dan Miller is one of these guys who just puts pressure on you. He never get breaks. He's got that New Jersey attitude, kind of like Frankie Edgar. And it's hard when you see the changing of the guard, but that's what this fight's going to answer the question to, you know. That's what this fight's going to answer the question to, if the guard's changing with these guys. And Dan Hooker is a tough test for Jim Miller, man. But Jim Miller is a big experience boost for Dan Hooker if Dan Hooker can get the W on Saturday night.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, speaking of, you know, changing of the guard and guys making that decision, you know, we had Carlos Condit recently, kind of informal, but he made a post this morning about, you know, just not being sure if he still has that fire. Do you still, and maybe not Carlos Condit in particular, but do you ever have fighters just out of the blue, Yves, that maybe reach out for you to advice when they feel like they're kind of coming across that bridge?
You know, I've spoken to a couple of friends about things like that in the past. Nobody was really, it wasn't like a phone call to say, hey, I'm thinking about this, let's talk. It was more of having a conversation with someone, and then it just came up and asking me when I knew or when I felt like it was time. And it's different for everyone, man. You see guys walking in there, like a guy like Brad Pickett, who'd rather say, but those guys, they walked in knowing this was their last time out. And sometimes you reassess. Some people go out there, they have the experience, win or lose, and then they decide, you know what, the game is changing too fast, and it's hard to keep up. My body's not holding up. I can't put in the work like I used to. Those types of things. It's a hard decision, and that's one of those situations where every situation is unique. And I would definitely speak with any friend about it at any point in time. But to just outright say this is the parameters, and once this happens, this is time to hang it up, I think that's different for everyone each time, man. And that's the hardest thing in the world, because I know I'm done, but there's still times I look at it and I just, like, it hurts. It hurts my heart to not be able to step back in there again.
Yves, 2 more quick questions. First, who do you think should be next for Khabib Nurmagomedov, and when would you like to see Khabib Nurmagomedov defend his title?
See, I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that question, because now I'm going to seem so biased. But let me give you the reasons, okay? Tony Ferguson is out with injury. Conor McGregor is out because he just wants to be. He's out with $100 million, and Edson Barbosa and Kevin Lee have both just lost either a title fight or to the guy who's holding the title now. One of those guys, to get back in contention, they have to win in spectacular fashion come Saturday night. Eddie and Dustin have that beef from the no contest that they had. So I believe those 2 guys should fight again, and the winner should get the fight. Or, you know, Eddie was disqualified, and he got a treat. He got treated to a season of The Ultimate Fighter and a main event with Dustin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje. Dustin had to go back and fight Justin Gaethje. Won the fight, and if you want to give Eddie a treat, give Dustin a treat, and then give him that opportunity to fight for the belt. So I know I'm biased, but you know what? It's too bad. It's too bad.
I don't disagree with you, my friend. All right, last question. Has the UFC, either through Fox, or has Fox ever said to you guys on the panel, hey, let's push these names or these narratives, you know, yeah, that's the question.
Has the UFC or Fox ever said, let's push these names, this agenda?
You know how, like, when announcers on fight day will get together with the matchmakers, and the matchmakers will say, hey, you know, we're kind of looking for a push here on the title run with this guy or this gal or whatever, just to kind of get a little bit of familiarity. We've heard that before. I think it's been told many times. How about you guys at the desk? Have you ever had anything in front of you that says, hey, let's really push that the winner of Lee and Barbosa could be in line for a title after Eddie Alvarez and Poirier, or something like that, or maybe Edgar. Maybe he could fight the winner. Like anything that has some sort of a push, either directly from the UFC through Fox, or just Fox, wanting to push certain fighters.
Why are you trying to get me fired, man? Why are you asking me all these hard questions? Nah, see, yeah. I don't know. On the real though, nah, it hasn't been a lot of. I haven't felt any time there's been. Well, let's push this fighter. Let's do this. Let's push this narrative.
Right.
It's been a lot of, and it's been a lot of. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this, and let's talk about this. But also, let's not try and just throw dirt or crush your fighters. Let's not demean or really bring someone down. Let's not really. Let's promote our guys. Yeah, if you have something you disagree with or something you feel is not somebody doesn't do well, you talk about that. But let's not shit on our guys, man. That's not cool. So that's kind of been. That's been the vibe that I've gotten. That's been the way I've been spoken to about it. I'm not the one that's try to poop on people, but there's been some times where I felt like, well, this particular thing is not cool. So then we'll just usually either take that out of the conversation. But I don't feel that there's been a let's just push this narrative as far as push this story to try to get this guy a title fight or try to push this here. But it has been, just be positive about these individuals here because we're trying to build something around them and they're the guys who are putting it on the line. Well, if that makes sense without being too vague, that's the case. There hasn't been a whole lot of let's push this story, let's try to get this guy a title fight, but it has been let's promote this guy and let's give him some props and big him up.
Gotcha. All right, sir. Well, thank you very much for the time here this morning on MMA Junkie Radio. We appreciate it. We look forward to your work at the Fox desk with Jimmy Smith and Megan O'Leary. Thanks, Eve, for the time.
No sweat. Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll see you. All right, folks, that's Yves Edwards. Give him a follow on Twitter at the Jiu-Jitsu Master, one of the best lightweights to ever fight in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And now, of course, one of the best on camera. We're going to take a break here. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on SiriusXM Rush 93. Stay close, and we'll be right back. Shout out to John Stauffer for making that Yves Edwards interview happen.
Yeah, you. Can you please tap that rather large fellow on the shoulder and tell him it's time for more MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Goes? Thank you.
Start your day with SiriusXM. Enable the SiriusXM skill on your Amazon device. Then tell Alexa to set an alarm for your favorite channel. And you'll wake up to the sounds of SiriusXM. With SiriusXM and Alexa, you get the latest sports news each morning without picking up your phone or turning on the TV. All right, guys. It is time for the Daily Debate, starring the MMA Junkie Radio team. Dan, Tom, Goes, Gorgeous George. All right, here we go. With his UFC Glendale win, should Dustin Poirier get the next shot at UFC champ Khabib Nurmagomedov? We kind of got a little bit of a tease earlier with Yves Edwards from Fox Sports. Well, what do you guys think? Start off with Goes.
I think it should be Dustin Poirier. I was actually a little shocked at the results. Obviously, there's always that talk of Conor McGregor. It gets a little annoying, but until we really hear anything about how he's going to be punished or what the deal is, he doesn't exist in my scenario, okay? So then you look at Tony Ferguson. He just had a major knee injury, and even if the UFC wanted to entertain doing that matchup again, would you really want to do it with a guy coming off of an injury? Even after that, I still don't think they would want to do that. Dustin makes the most sense to me.
Yeah. I want to say this, though. What makes the most sense for me is for Khabib to defend as soon as possible because he's healthy and the division has been non-existent for like 18 months. Now, I realize he wants to observe Ramadan, which ends on June 14th, but we have a few cards already starting to form up in the summer of the pay-per-view variety. I don't think we need to wait till November. So even if it's Alvarez, and I think it should be Poirier, but even if it's Alvarez, who also has a strong resume, I would just like to see the fight sooner rather than later. But if you're asking me, should Poirier get the next shot, my answer is yes. What about you, Dan, Tom?
Well, it's a great point. Defense and keeping the division, active is the most important. But I think Poirier deserves it. I got to imagine the people saying no are a big fan of narrative and storyline, and I am too. Poirier and Alvarez, even they have some unfinished business. And if Conor McGregor came back, you could pair them all on the same card and do a nice foursome there. But it's hard to disagree with Dustin Poirier. He's really put the work in these last two performances. How could you argue with that? And just not the last two performances. Look at his body of work, the attitude, what he brings to the table. I think it's a win-win. I think you got to give Dustin Poirier the shot.
Sounds like we're in agreement. All right, there you have it. That's our daily debate brought to you by the MMA Junkie Radio team. Oh, and just so you know, the results were 56% said no, 44% said yes. Now, no could be Alvarez, Ferguson, Conor McGregor, and everybody else. So it doesn't mean it's 56% in favor of Alvarez. It's just those are the ones that don't want to see Dustin have an X. And you all are stupid, in my opinion. Take that. All right. What do you guys think of Carlos Condit? The social media post that he put. He had fun. He wants to bleed for the fans. He's not saying he's done. He put in an honest camp. He felt good, but maybe my time has passed was the final quote, or the highlighted quote from that social media post.
Well, everybody fights for a reason, right? And it's not always the same reason. I think when people start, it's to become a champion. For Carlos, I like that he's just being real with himself. Maybe maybe he could still fight, but maybe his aspirations of becoming a champion aren't there. And I think we heard Joe Lozon say something similar like a year ago or something like that. So, yeah, if you want to take fights that kind of make sense for you, I'm okay with that. I love watching Carlos Condit fight. But if you want to keep it real, some of them guys at the top, they can hurt you. And I don't know that Carlos has very much left to prove in the sport. I mean, I'm all for him making money. He's the reason why I would buy a pay-per-view. So I'm game for that.
And Carlos won a WEC belt. He won a UFC interim belt. So it's not like he'd walk away thinking, man, I didn't reach certain goals. He kind of reached quite a few goals. Remember when he knocked down GSP? I mean, he was close to being undisputed. He was never undisputed in the UFC, but he was still an interim champ, had lots of decorated wins, probably his fair share of bonuses. But what do you think, Dan? You want to see more of Carlos Condit?
It's tough, man. I think it's a very honest post. I don't have any issue with it. I love seeing that type of honesty, and I think if he's really thinking about it, I think that Dana White quote kind of applies. Maybe he should start looking that direction. I'm a fan of his too, by the way. Just it's what it is.
This is what Carlos Condit made, by the way, 115,000 just to show. I imagine it would have been another 115 if he won. So, yeah, some good money's out there if he continues fighting. To round out the main card, Poirier got 85 and 85 and the bonus. Gaethje got 110 just for showing and the bonus. Alex Oliveira, 50 and 50, 100,000 plus a bonus. Carlos Condit, the aforementioned 115 that he showed. Izzy Adesanya got 53 and 53. That ain't bad for your second fight. 106 total. Martin Vettori, 20 G's. He took home. Michelle Watterson, 40 and 40 for 80. Courtney Casey, 33 in the losing effort. We'll talk about more of these when we come back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. Call in, participate with the show, 866-522-2846. And don't forget, towards the end of the show, we'll have Matt Brown, UFC welterweight.
Down the drain.
You got the headphones?
This here's a jam for all the fellas. Try to do what those ladies tell us. Get shot down cause you're overzealous. Play hard to get females, get jealous. Okay, smarty, go to a party. Girls are scantily clad and showing body. A chick walks by, you wish you could sex her, but you're standing on the wall like you was Poindexter. Next day's function, high class luncheon. Food is served and you're stone cold munching. Music comes on, people start to dance, but then you ate so much you nearly split your pants. A girl starts walking, guys start gawking, sits down next to you and starts talking. Says she wanna dance cause she likes the groove, so come on fatso and just bust the move. Just bust the move. You're on a mission and you're wishing someone could cure your lonely condition. Looking for love in all the wrong places. No fine girls, just ugly faces. From frustration, first inclination is to become a monk and leave the situation. But every dark tunnel has a light of hope, so don't hang yourself with a celibate rope. New movies showing, so you're going. Could care less about the vibe you're blowing. Theater gets dark just to start the show. Then you spot a fine woman sitting in your row. She's dressed in yellow.
She says hello.
Come sit next to me, you fine fellow. You run over there without a second to lose. And what comes next? Hey, bust the move.
All right, here we go. the second hour of the MMA Junkie Radio Show. I'm tripping over my words because I'm tasting a delicious cookie.
Yeah.
That was brought by our friend Pam from North Carolina. If some of you are putting the math together, hey, wait a minute. The Belly Dancers, isn't one of them a Pam from North Carolina? Haven't I heard her before on Amp Radio? Yes, that's the same Pam, except she's here on a different trip, and she stopped by with more moonshine and cookies. So thank you, Pam, for that. We really, really appreciate it. It's always great to see you. And before the break, we were talking about the salaries. Did any of those stand out for you guys? I guess I made a big deal out of Izzy's, but
yeah.
What stood out for you guys?
Well,
Adesanya's for me.
Discrepancy between his opponent. He's had more fights. Marvin's had more fights and makes considerably less.
Well, so Izzy came over with an undefeated record, but allotted kickboxing record as well.
Right.
And I'm sure maybe some of that was just, hey, listen, man, I have a great manager, and we went to work. You know what I mean?
It's not weird, though. I mean, like, look at Go Kansaki, right? What he makes, you're not going to give him the same thing as a guy just coming in, right?
Right.
It makes me think, though, it's definitely not weird, and even less weirder for Adesanya because he's got a higher ceiling. He's younger, more experience in MMA. Even though he got controlled, underrated more than most people give him credit for is his counter grappling and other skills. So believe me, not that I don't get it, but then you compare him to guys like, Poirier or guys on the main card there that have been around for a minute, and you kind of see how close it gets to there, and it kind of makes you scratch your head, and also makes me think of, like you just said, Gokhan Saki made me think of that name and wonder, maybe is this a strategy thing? Obviously, they need these fun fights for fun fillers in their card. They have such a crazy schedule. They have to fill it with fun fighters, right? But is it a strategy, in Bellator that they came with the dynamite, the kickboxing? And is it a strategy to get those names, and even if they have to pay a little more for him, like an Adesanya or Saki, to secure him on the UFC side so they can use him as opposed to the competition? Is that a tactic maybe?
Maybe, man. I think so. You don't want to strengthen them. You strengthen yourself. And then you take their age, their resume. Are they exciting? Do they have a following? And at the time, if middleweight is the division you need to shore up, then, hey, let's do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Kirk Cousins. All right, look, I don't want to jump around from sport to sport. Kirk Cousins
about to make me mad.
Goes as starting quarterback at the Washington Redskins. Was he at the level of Rodgers or Drew Brees or Tom Brady? No.
Probably.
But there's a lot of teams that are on the cusp of winning, but they don't have a solid quarterback. Kirk Cousins is a solid quarterback.
Yeah.
He just needs a solid team. And so he was there at the right time. And honestly, so was Jimmy Garoppolo, where they had to overpay a little bit because it was just the season for teams that needed were in a position where they had salary cap room, or they're on the cusp of a title, and they had to make a decision, so they overpaid. I'm not saying Izzy is overpaid because let's let him finish out the contract and see what he brings to the table.
Yeah.
It could be that this guy's next two fights are so awesome, we're going to go, what a bargain. The UFC got him for a bargain, and then the next time he's getting paid, we don't know. But as soon as I read that, I knew you guys would react, and I know I was reacting. But, I mean, that's more than Oliveira. And Oliveira's been there a minute, and Oliveira's had his fun share of fights. He is 2 divisions higher, and they say the bigger divisions get paid more. But
Oliveira's fought in a headlining spot against Cowboy.
And look at this, guys. He took home 106. Carlos won 115. Carlos has really put time into the sport. Now, granted, Carlos didn't win his fight, and that would have doubled almost what Adesanya did. But still pretty amazing stuff there. And how about the fact that Gagey made 110? Ali must have done some real good negotiating, getting him out of WSOF and over to the UFC. That's in a losing effort. In a losing effort, he's only 5,000 behind Condit. You know what I mean? That's kind of amazing.
That is, yeah. No wonder why you could put that I only have 5 fights left. It's a lot easier to do that math when you have those numbers to work with.
We're probably going to do this more in the upcoming years because now Vegas has a sports scene. Did you guys hear, speaking of quarterbacks, what people are pitching out there quarterback-wise for the Las Vegas Raiders?
They already have one.
I know.
Carr's not good enough?
But Aaron Rodgers is unhappy. And they're saying, what if we sent Derek Carr that way? Send us Aaron Rodgers over here.
He just gets lost in
Vegas.
Vegas.
Get that team going right away in Vegas.
You don't think he can handle himself?
I don't know.
That's got to be
Rodgers have problems?
I got to imagine that this place is going to bring out some problems, and a lot of guys going to tickle. That's what I'm going to be watching for when
He's
the
dating,
pros get here.
What's her?
Olivia Munn?
Munn, yeah.
I think they broke up.
Did they?
I think.
Vegas,
this.
baby.
They did. They did.
Check this out.
They broke up.
You know the Vegas Golden Knights?
Uh-huh.
They have a rule amongst the team because it's based in Summerlin, which
No
is,
hookers after 9.
which is based was just about 30 minutes away from the Vegas Strip, and they all have to live within 10 or 15 minutes of the rink out there. So the good thing is they want to keep them close together, but I think they also want to keep them away from the Strip. Some guys probably are married with families. Other guys are maybe just single, and they don't want them in any trouble. So I think there's probably ways around at least controlling them. And let's face it, there's athletes that get in trouble from, and they live in conservative cities.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I don't know
we'll
if the
see. We'll
Strip
see what'll
is
happen.
this monster that it used to be. Do you?
We live here, though, right? So there's a lot of that. We have a
Is it
weird
like,
tilted glass of it,
I
maybe?
guess it can.
But
it
like people
can
that you
be,
know
but-
that live here, like we'll take Trig for instance, okay? Trig has lived here for a long time. How many times do we know, like, I'm coming in again at 6 a.m. or like, I think when you live here, it just starts to get old.
Okay, but remember Kendall Grove and that
Oh,
early
yeah,
wave
yeah,
of fighters. I don't want to. I don't want to not name. I don't want to name incorrectly some of the fighters that we've interviewed in the past that said Vegas was addictive in certain sense. Like I got in some trouble, and once they got away, and I think Grove was one of them who was open on our show about it. But this was back in the Tyson Griffin era, Kendall Grove era. A few of the guys that were just single, making money. Tough 1, 2, 3 had just gone off, and these guys were stars. Temptations were everywhere. Doors were opening. Dinners were bought. Bottle service everywhere.
I think
So
that's
I
starting
think
to die down, though, isn't it?
Could be.
I think Vegas has a different.
Well, you know what
mentality
changed
now.
it? You know what changed it is other people's mistakes. So now, when you say, "Oh shit, I never want to be in the position of so and so," because paparazzi, social media. So I think everyone's just so defensive in what they do. They some are a little bit more private and they just don't put themselves in that spot. Others don't care and do it on purpose. But yeah, you're right. You don't hear about it as much as you used to.
It's definitely something you have to look into if you're trying to bring an athlete into Las Vegas. But at the end of the day, and it's so weird to say this, but Floyd Mayweather doesn't drink, doesn't smoke. And yeah, you'd see him on the Strip, but rarely did troubles come from that. It's
I don't
funny,
know
like
about that. I don't know about that.
most of his troubles came from away from the Strip. Like, look, he just
True.
got into a shooting, right? He wasn't in Vegas when that happened.
Yeah, a certain
But
amount
it's
of
still
it.
like at the end of the day, if you pick the right dude, he should be able to stay out of trouble in Las Vegas.
That's true. It does come down to the person to a certain extent. But then part of me also wonders, like, maybe it's different if you're living here, if for a team, or you're just coming in for fight week. But part of me wonders all those fight weeks where we've all heard stories of, for example, Chuck Liddell. That's not throwing anybody under the bus or anything. And I don't know if this is throwing anybody under the bus, but I've seen some with my own eyes. I may or may not have seen a Michael Bisping at XS before UFC 100 on fight week. And I know that is not an uncommon. I'm picking on Bisping. I know that's not an uncommon thing. If anything, it's making an excuse for the guy. But that's not an uncommon thing. So would these guys be hitting the club on fight week? In other words, with the Liddells or these stories you hear, if there were in St. Charles, Missouri, Well, then there's stories of guys like Mark Coleman who just still party no matter where the UFC went in those days too. I'm just saying. So yeah, I think there's legs on both sides of that argument.
What do you think, George?
You got nothing.
The discussion between you two.
You ain't got nothing to say about St. Charles, Missouri,
I
goes?
mean,
Danny, you got anything to
I think
say?
that's kind of crazy. Like, I mean, props to the Vegas Knights for being able to pull that off. But
Right.
to tell people like you have to live a certain area around where the practice facility is, like, geez, I don't know a lot of people that would really want to be told where they have to live and all that. But hey, man, free state tax, right? That's got to make it worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's different times, and I think the players know that they can easily be replaced. Teams are more open about cutting big stars, and they're also investigating you a little bit more. Like the Niners are going through something with a guy named Reuben Foster. We got him late in the first round, but he had some teams had qualms about choosing him because of troubles that he had gotten into in the University of Alabama. The San Francisco 49ers said they vetted him. They felt like, hey, that immaturity's gone. We got a new guy, and he's already had weapons charges and domestic abuse charges that he's got to account for. And San Francisco is facing pressures from a lot of groups that are saying, hey, you should cut him right now. The charges have already been brought forward. Now, granted, maybe he'll be found not guilty or who knows what, but still, they're past the allegation stage. And it sucks because you could tell the kid's talented, but if these are early signs of, for example, what we went through with Alden Smith, who in his first 3 years was on pace, guys, to possibly break a sack record held by, I think it's Bruce Smith or Reggie White. He had gotten a lot of sacks, and we had ourselves a defensive end that could pressure the quarterback, but he had drinking problems. And, you know, we eventually had to cut him. He went to the Raiders. I think they parted ways. Recently, he got caught with .40. You ever heard of something like that?
No.
They said his levels were so high, he could have died. So he just hasn't been able to keep it together. That is, again, in Oakland and San Francisco, not in Vegas. So I just think you can get in trouble in any city, honestly. A few Giants have gotten in trouble in the Big Apple. It can just happen anywhere. So I'm not too worried about what Vegas can or can't do. I think these professional athletes already know what's at stake. I think they have a lot of the right people around them, especially in the bigger sports. Hell, I think I've even heard that some teams have security teams that are always checking in with a lot of the
their own consigliere, like the Godfather.
Huh?
Like the teams have their own consigliere, like the Godfather,
something
right?
like that, where they're always keeping an eye on certain guys and checking in because, hey, man, that they run a business and they'll put up with so much. But, again, somebody coming out of college is going to be just as fast and have great hands or you know, great moves or tackling ability or whatever, and you can be replaced. But anyway, just to finish things out here, Shoeface got 40,000 and 40,000 for a total of 80. Tim Boach got 72,000. Muslim Salikov got 10 and 10, 20,000 total. Ricky Rainey, 14,000. John Moraga, 37 for a total of 74. Wilson Hayes, 31. Brad Tavares, 40 and 40 for a total of 80. Christoph Jocko, 36. After that, Yushin Okami got 35 and 35 for a total of 70. And Matthew Lopez took home 33 for losing. Alejandro Perez, 25 and 25 for a total of 50. Gilbert Burns, 28 and 28 for a total of 56. Remember back in the day where we'd say, whoa, 2,500, 5,000? It looks like no one makes less than 10. Mm-hmm.
But a guy like
these
Tavares still
numbers
making 40?
are starting to rise a little bit more. Here's something that I know people will hate for me to bring up, but I'm going to because it's the truth. There's a lot of names that I see here where if the UFC were to part ways with them, they wouldn't miss a beat. And that's why these fighters collectively, standing together, have way more of a say and way more power than individually. Because any one of these that were to act up, and that's 28 fighters I'm looking at, because that's 14 fights we just went through.
Right.
Most of them, if they were to say, that's bullshit. You know, we need to do this. We need these working conditions. Dude, all they're doing is waiting for you to lose and see ya. You know what I mean? And there's some good salaries being paid out. And that's the position, that's the leverage that the UFC has over a lot of these fighters. And so that's why a lot of them just have to bite their tongue and go out there and just do their thing. Because where else are you going to make 37 and 37 or just 72 or just 33 or just, 53 and 53? Where maybe Bellator might pay that to some of them, but that's rare. They have had some free agencies, but can you really name more than a dozen? Let's go through it. Davis, Bader, Thompson, Henderson, Lorenz, Musasi. I mean, we're at 7 or 6. If there's 6 more, okay, but it's not like, oh, my God, they're just cracking open the checkbooks. And you're seeing some of the ratings that are coming in. Rampage, Chael, Mir, Nelson. We're getting close to a dozen that really, really mattered. Rory. But after that, I don't know that they can just do it for anyone else. And so that's why they kind of almost have to play ball, because where else are they going to make that money? What else are they going to –
They can match that, but doesn't mean that you're going to fight that many times a year anyway.
Or get the exposure.
Man, the Tavares one now, that depresses me, especially compared to the other middleweight. We were just talking about Adesanya's, the pay there. You just do that math. I mean, more credit to managers that can get these guys, what they deserve, because I believe they all deserve more, obviously. But that's rough, man, because you got to imagine, okay, well, maybe maybe Brad doesn't have the highlight reel wins, doesn't have the highlight reel names. Maybe he's not the most boisterous guy at the negotiating table. Sure, okay, I can get all these things, but usually, if anything, they tend to give you what it seems like I'm no pro, but the bare minimum deal is the way they can get away with not having to placate toward you and fluff you up and give you a big contract or dish out the pocketbook is, oh, we'll pay you close to what you want, but you got to win. We're going to give you an incremental thing where when you win, it increases your pay by a little bit. Those little deals. So I'm like, okay, well, even if he got one of those deals, wouldn't he still be getting more than that? Because you look at Brad's only lost to two guys that fought for the title or held interim titles.
He's lost 4 times.
Recently. I mean, you look at all the wins and that momentum in the last
Whitaker,
relevant stretch.
Romero, Boch, and I can't remember who else. I can't remember. But
you just do the math of wins versus loss ratio and time spent, and the math doesn't make sense to me when I see that number. That's all.
What guy out of this group could knock down Dana's door and go, you're paying me this much or I'm out of here, and possibly get it? Who has the best chance?
Before this fight? Well,
no, after this fight.
Or Dustin Poirier.
After this fight.
I think I agree with you.
It wouldn't have been
all
before
of the
this
others,
fight.
Dana White can say, hey, I got a better idea. Walk out of here. We're tearing up your contract. We're done.
I think
the UFC will not miss a beat, man.
I think John Moraga has a little bit of a leg to stand on just because that division is so shallow, and they need people.
But not over Dustin Poirier, right?
Not over Dustin.
Not
but
over
the thing is,
Gaethje or Adesanya.
If Dustin disappeared, there's just so many other contenders.
There's a lot of lightweights.
So that's the only way I'm looking at it.
That's why I say, man, I feel for some of these guys.
They wouldn't like it, but
they just don't have the leverage individually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This whole card could all walk into the UFC PI and go, hey, we want to start a movement. You don't have any of us unless, and I think Shelby and Mick Maynard and Dana would look around and go, we still got like 500 other athletes, right? Well, all right, well, go ahead and sit on the bench for a while. We'll work with the other athletes. There's no leverage, man. I think some of these just have to take this money, accept it, and that's it. And us as fans and media, we can complain and all, but it doesn't matter. It's all about business. It's a business decision. And because it seems like every other thread I open is Conor McGregor and Paul Daly did less. Why is Conor McGregor getting away with this? Because he's a star. Will Conor McGregor be back? What are they going to do about Conor McGregor? The reason they put up with it, it's simple, folks. The reason they put up with a lot of his antics is because he makes the company a lot of money. If he didn't, he'd be gone. But if you want to dissect Daly versus McGregor, let's do it. Daly assaulted, technically, I guess, Josh Koscheck after a fight. He actually threw a punch. Koscheck, if you really look, blocked it. I think Dana, it wasn't because of the assault or the physical nature of it. It was just because in an athletic contest, he just felt like that was as low as you can get for someone to hit someone after the bell was over. You just had the 15 minutes to do it, and you didn't do it. You don't do it at the end of a fight, when the guy's just doing his thing. He's celebrating, With Conor McGregor, what sucked was Dana saying, well, there's mutual respect. I mean, he was so pissed. I think a lot of people were appreciating the fact, that he was pissed. He felt it was wrong. Dana could have fallen back and said, let's wait and see what the legal system did. But then 3 days later, he says, well, there's mutual respect and this and that. And I think a lot of people actually, I shouldn't say a lot of people, because even though that's true, what really matters is a lot of fighters were turned off by that.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, we have to wait and see how that plays out, and we'll see what Dana decides to do about it. But to compare the two, it is kind of different as well. Both acts were just completely, we'll say, despicable. I mean, Conor really could have hurt a lot of people that had no play in that. You know what I mean? With that dolly crashing through that window, if it didn't hit that partition, I think it was headed for Rose. I mean, he really could have hurt, either one person more seriously or more people, depending on how that shattered.
I don't even think it would have mattered.
3 fights were already ruined, and then again, not to continue to harp on something that happened 3 weeks ago, but I still don't see what the game plan was. Anybody that says, "Wow, he was a gangster, he had his boys back," well, I appreciate that him and a bunch of people hopped on a plane, maybe to have his back in case shit were to erupt. Right. But as far as the game planning that went behind all that, that wasn't a gangster move. Like, Habib didn't look shook up one bit. he goofed. He goofed up, you know, and now he's got more troubles and possible lawsuits. So I didn't see. In fact, what he should have just done is knocked on that window, said what he had to say, and that would have been it. He didn't need to do the dolly and all that other stuff. That's where he actually unraveled. But anyway, yeah.
He could have thrown the dolly, knocked out Rose Namajunas. It still wouldn't have mattered. They still wouldn't cut him or anything like that. Money is too big of a deal to these guys.
Yeah, it's hard to make the comparison because it's like, I'm not even gonna waste any calories anymore. Any calories defending Conor McGregor, it was wrong. I don't think I'm not gonna defend Dana White's response to it too because I feel that was wrong. I feel like they should punish him. I know they have to wait for the legal process, but as far as like taking a statement or a stance, there's much more that could be done. You know, we went over that ad nauseum, and I know a lot of people side with that opinion. But what I will say in the defense of the other guys, though, even though when we're back to the comparison that you brought up with Jason High and Conor McGregor, or not Jason High, but Jason High is another name. You know, you always bring up these names, Jason High and Paul Daly, as the unfair ones, and it's true. And not to open up, you know,
he hit a ref, but if I recall, right, High.
Right, he shoved the ref, yeah.
Right, but I think he had just got knocked out.
Yeah, he just got
I actually
TKO'd.
gave him a little bit of a pass, man.
Too.
Go ahead, finish.
Yeah, and that's one that you know we could break down those instances or whatever, and they were wrong. But at the same time, you could break down a bunch of other instances, whether it's playful ones like Roy Nelson, John McCarthy that didn't happen, or other ones where they got physical or intense with the ref that maybe not as direct of a shove, or there's plenty of examples, and it looks bad. But I will say something. Goes mentioned is era, and that's important to keep in mind because at the time with the Daly and Koscheck one, this was pre-Fox. They were trying to really this was hey, our guys have college educations. Look at Kenny Florian over there. This was that era, guys, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We were trying to, and then when we got on Fox, we were just fresh on Fox, and those Fox Fight Night cards was real fresh. That's when the Jason High thing happened. I'm not saying that makes it any right. I'm not saying I don't sympathize for those two guys because I do.
Jesse Taylor,
but
that's why all that happened.
Yeah. It all comes down to the era. So I do think that there's something to that. But I will say, one of my favorite post-fight speeches, number 4, my top 5 favorite post-fight speeches was because of that Paul Daly thing. Because if you remember afterwards, Josh Koscheck goes from a sympathetic figure, right? He's the guy that just took a shot after the bell. What does he do? He turns around and goes, you know what, Canada? Pittsburgh Penguins are going to kick your team's butt in the playoffs, and then I'm going to beat your boy George St. Pierre. And he used the point where he could have been a sympathetic character, turned it around and said, no, I don't want sympathy. I want everybody to hate me because I'm about to get paid with a title shot.
Yeah, one of the OGs when it came to being a heel. Let's talk to Showtime from Tennessee. We'll get him on real quick before we go to our break. What's up, Showtime? It's your time. What's up?
Showtime.
What's going on, fellas?
What's up? What's up?
Nothing much. Hey, I'm going to tell you this, man. Money just insinuates who you are. If you drink, you're going to drink with money or without money. I can remember me and the couple guys, the late Steve McNair, let him rest in peace. We used to get drunk the night before the games on road trips. We'll sit in the room and get drunk Friday night, and we have to play a game on Saturday. So it really doesn't matter. If you drink, you're going to drink. You know, if you get a little bit of money, you're going to drink better whiskey, or you're going to do better drugs. But it just enhance who you are already. But let me ask you guys this. Since Khabib has to be off for Ramadan, they need to let these fighters fight it out and see who deserves to get that spot. I wouldn't mind seeing the winner of this Lee Barboza fight the winner.
You're crazy, Showtime. You're talking about two guys that are coming off a loss that they should be next for Khabib instead of Alvarez or Poirier, who are on much better runs. And you know how much I'm down with Kevin Lee, a frequent co-host.
But I can't get seeing Poirier get stopped by a guy that's on a 1-4 skid. I can't get that out of my mind. And I love Poirier. I love him. I hear good stories.
What about the Gaethje fight? Did that help? What about the Pettis fight? That didn't help get it off your mind? I mean, he's done some things since then, and prior to him getting starched, he won 4 in a row.
But look at how many Lee won in a row.
Okay, look, God, I hate doing this. I hate doing this because Lee's also my boy. What about Leo Santos? Can you get that? You got that one out of your head pretty easily, right? Do you remember when he took out Kevin Lee? You erased that one pretty quickly. But the other ones you can't get rid of them.
Going back to the last 9 fights. How many has he won? out of his last nine or 10 fights.
Man,
I mean, but I see
how
what
do
you're
you how do you
saying.
tell
It's
an
what-
audience?
you know what?
How do you tell an audience these two guys coming off a loss could be next? You don't do that. It doesn't work in any sport. I mean, this is kind of like these top athletes are in playoffs, all right? And
but this is what you do. You hold it and wait on corner then, because I can look at Alvarez getting knocked out, getting starched. You hold it and just wait on corner to come back in if that's the case. Hold it and wait.
I don't
on
want
corner.
Alvarez to be in there. I think Gaethje has the best argument because he's got a streak at least. You know what I mean?
Poirier.
What did I say?
Yeah.
Gaethje.
Yeah, sorry. Poirier's got a streak going.
I mean, you know what? I understand. I love Poirier's story about him being broke and his wife having to take him to fights. And I love that. I love it. But I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, luckily I do, so I was here to save you. Thanks for the call, my man. All right, we got to go to break. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM Rush 93. Stay close. We'll be right back.
Agents, because they don't know where those people have been, and because they can. They are Gorgeous George and Goes, and this is MMA Junkie Radio.
Fantasy baseball season is in full swing, and SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio can take your team to a championship. Hear expert advice from the best fantasy baseball analysts, plus interviews with big league players and general managers. If you play fantasy baseball, you need to listen to SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. That's Sirius 210, XM87, and on the SiriusXM app by searching Fantasy Sports. Our next guest, Matt Brown, UFC welterweight. 21 wins he has in his career, but the best stat that I like the most, 19 finishes. Follow him on Twitter at I am the Immortal. Matt Brown joining us. By the way, Matt, speaking of Twitter, who made that the Immortal Army Matt Brown t-shirt? I love it.
Oh, nice. Did you buy one?
Not yet. I just saw it this morning when I was like, all right, what's up with Matt Brown? What's he up to? I scrolled down, I saw it, so I will be buying one.
Nice. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's just me and my buddy, man. We're putting some stuff together. You know, we got this downtime right now. We'll try to take advantage of it. And, you know, there's no reason not to have a decent infrastructure of backup projects, side projects for when, you know, outside of fighting income, right?
That's right, yeah. And just like you stated, after your injury, don't feel sorry for me. A lot of positives can come of this. And it sounds like, you know, this T-shirt and maybe other stuff is going to be what you make of it. It's what you make of it, right, Matt Brown?
It's a fact, brother. And I'm trying to make the best of it. Well, I'll say I am making the best of it. And, you know, I'm really been working all day, every day. Well, a lot on rehab, obviously, but, you know, working on my website and, you know, my equipment business and some other projects that I might start taking up. And been writing a lot, getting some blogs that I'll start posting up and working on maybe a book, you know. So
damn.
You know, just trying to do some positive things in his downtime.
Can you give us a preview of the book? Will it be more of will it be about MMA, or will it be about other stuff you've always wanted to write about?
Well, I'm kind of I got probably 5 or 6 books that I've kind of been working on. Is like I haven't really consolidated and just hammered down, you know, dedicated solely to one yet. So we'll see which one comes of it. The one I've been putting the most time in lately is sort of a mindset training book, a mental, you know, sort of, you know, just about the mindset of a fighter, and I'm trying to make sort of more. So everybody knows about like mindset training, right? And but there's not really a structured way to train your mind. Everybody. You hear, you know, this advice from this person, from this person, from this person. You can read this book about this subject, but there's not really a strategic way that I have found, at least, you know, strategic way of building it up, where sort of the parallel I would draw would be similar to, like, you know, if you're wanting to be a bodybuilder or even, you know, training camp for a fight, you know, there's basically a formulaic way that you structure your camp and your strength training, and you know, you periodize your you know, your blocks different ways. And it just seems with the mental stuff, you know, it's like just a bunch of theoretical, you know, you should do this. It's like you know, but you know, it needs to be built on something. So that's sort of my concept of it right now. And you know, I've come to find that writing books is a fucking major process. You know, which we know, right? But it's more major, I guess, than I took it granted for.
Interesting. All right, Matt Brown joining us here on MMA Junkie Radio. Matt, I shared with you that I had a knee injury, and mine kind of kept me in bed a lot, and I was at my brother and my girlfriend, they had to drive me around. So what I wanted to ask you about the injury is, have you been able to get up and walk and do stuff on your own? I'm not as familiar with the ACL injury as, for example, mine, which was the torn patellar injury.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the torn patella, but I know a lot of guys take the patella out for their ACL. I took my hamstring for my autograft. I day one, I was up and moving.
Wow.
I haven't taken a single pain pill. I've been taking the CBD oil and a little bit of THC. Not, I'm not a pothead. I don't really even like weed, but it seems to really complement the CBD oil pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And just a little bit just for sleeping purposes only. Mm-hmm. But I haven't taken a single pain pill since, the surgery day. They give it to you, I guess, while you're pretty much out of it still. But I haven't taken it. And I was up the next day moving around, and it's not easy to get in and out of my car, but I make it happen.
Yeah. And for those that are wondering, if you haven't studied up on USADA, don't worry. I'm sure Matt's still in the testing program. THC is only not allowed in competition, which is defined by 8 hours before and after. So give the guy a break, be educated on it. And I have read a lot about how helpful that can be. And it's great that you're not linked to pain pills and that you are turning towards CBD oil, because I've heard many benefits. So congrats on that. And congrats on the books and the T-shirt. And just to finish out the T-shirt combo, if you want to order one, folks, go to theimmortalstore.com. They are also working on other designs, but this one looks really cool, and that'd be a nice way to support Matt as he comes back from this injury. All right, let me turn it over to Goes and Dan here. Goes, what do you have for Matt Brown?
Matt, I like that you brought up the mindset of a fighter, training for the fight, the actual fight. All that really interests me. And it was kind of close to what I wanted to ask you was, we've had a lot of fighters on the show talk about the release that the fight gives them, from all that training. And sometimes when the fight happens, if it's a really short fight, they feel like maybe they didn't even get that whole release from everything they put into it. In your case, you didn't get that release. So I wanted to ask you was, what do you do to counterbalance that? Is that something that just gets stored away and gets released eventually, or is there something else you can do that gives you that release?
That's a great question because, I was peaking out, getting into great shape, and just ready to go in there and bang. And obviously, a tough fighter in Carlos Condit. So, certainly a lot of energy built up and ready to go in there, and all the anticipation and everything. For me, one of the big things that I'm really, really big on is having the ability to switch channels. Is what I call it, TV channels. So if you sort of imagine your brain as a TV where you can instantly change the channel. And I had to learn that a long time ago when I had kids. Because, initially I would, before I had kids, my identity was basically based on fighting. If I had a bad day at the gym, I was having a bad day everywhere I went. Fuck everybody, And if I had a great day at the gym, then I was in a great mood. And I don't think that's really a healthy way to live, whether you have kids or not. But that's where I was. And then when I had kids, I learned how to take some deep breaths, reset my mind, and turn from the savage that was trying to knock people's heads off into the savage that was present at home. No less savage, but but a different energy directed in a different manner. And I think over the years, I've just developed that where, the day that I heard that my ACL was ruptured and I was going to require surgery, it was initially, the initial energy that kind of comes into your head is, this is a terrible thing and life is going to be bad. And, all you see is this 6-9 month, whatever recovery, this is all the things you're going to lose this money. You've been working all this. The list goes on and on. But the ability to just instantly change that channel and say, I'm still alive and I still have a lot that I can do in my life to inspire others, and I still have a lot that I can be productive at in this time. And just to be able to focus your energy towards that is, I think, a skill that is very important.
Something like that, I think, can be useful for anyone. And any time in my life where I've kind of learned a lesson like that and applied it, it's hard for me not to look back and go, God, I wish I knew this, 10, 15 years ago. There's so many different things I can do. How difficult for you is it to not look at the past and focus more on the present? Was that something that just happened overnight, or is it something you had to work on?
No, again, it's all stuff that we have to work on, because I think as our initial, our just natural instincts as human beings, is to feel those ways. And I'm sure there's some evolutionary psychology to that and everything, and I'm sure that I'll dig into that as I'm writing. But I don't really know why it happens, but yeah, we worry about what has happened. I've learned, as I'm sure you have in your time, that the future, the past does not have to be an indicator of your future. So that it goes a long way for me, just having that in my mind and knowing that that no matter what I did in my past, I can always change my future.
All right, Dan Tom, our fight analyst, he's got a question or two for you. What do you have for Matt Brown, Dan?
Matt, on that note, I agree. Your past doesn't indicate your future at all. But if you don't mind for a second, I actually kind of wanted to revisit something in your past. It's something that I haven't heard you speak on in a while, and you kind of maybe have nodded to it earlier, and perhaps maybe listeners that are newer might not be aware, of your past. But you said something about recovering the surgery. I personally don't like pain pills. They don't do good with me, and that CBD stuff it was a lifesaver. But as far as you said it was important to you not to take pain pills. Now, listeners might not know why, but can you maybe shed some of the light on that history, and is that important for you still to this day? Because, for example, it's apropos. I believe Court McGee just posted today marks his 12 years of sobriety, for example. Which is that's Court's bag. That's not necessarily your bag, but can you speak on that, Matt?
Yeah, congrats to Court for one. We have a similar past. We both OD'd before. So, yeah, huge congrats to him, first off. And for me, I'm actually, to be completely honest, I'm disciplined enough and I've trained my mind well enough that I could actually take the pain pills and be perfectly fine and not get addicted. I did have to take them when I had surgery on my hand not too long ago, and it wasn't just because of the surgery, but I think I bumped my hand or something. I went to train. I tried to train. I don't know. I guess I was kind of being a dummy, and I was like, well, I'll just do just one hand or whatever. And of course, my other hand got bumped up pretty good, and so I was in a lot of pain. So I took some pain because. So the point is, I'm mature enough and strong-willed enough now that I can take pain pills and not be addicted. But I choose not to do it more for the health reasons than anything else. I think there's a lot of unintended consequences to these things that we take, and I'm sure that there's a ton of unintended consequences, even just for surgeries and stuff. And but that's really, just the long-term health is really more important to me than the short term, because I know in the short term, again, I wouldn't be addicted. I could take the whole bottle and I'd be fine.
Well, I'm with you on that, Matt. But the stories of overcoming adversity are definitely something. I remember we were just talking about Ultimate Fighters, and I was talking about one of my favorite seasons was your season, and just getting attracted to the characters. From day one, watching you guys fight in the house, from Amir Sadala to yourself. And I remember it as being someone at Extreme Couture, training Extreme Couture, even back then, coming in one day after the show was over and seeing you train there. I'm like, oh man, this guy is here to stay. And was really excited after hearing your story. So thanks for sharing that. But I guess, guessing what I wanted to ask you here. Wow, I'm drawing blanks. I just got that vivid memory. No, that's what I wanted to ask. Speaking of the drug addiction, I guess you talk about blogging and writing books. Is any of that going to be about your stories of overcoming adversity? Because that stuff's really inspiring. To me, and I know to many.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I certainly, I guess once you write enough, you kind of have to dig into whatever you can, right? I mean, you got to start finding content one way or another. I don't initially have any intentions of what I guess what I'm kind of getting at is what I really hate when I read other people's stuff is when they try to kind of impose their autobiography on you, right? And say, you know, you hear this in these motivational speakers all the time, and that they'll say, you know, I went through this and I went through, or especially if you ask, you know, anybody for advice, you know, they say, well, this is, you know, my life and this is what I would do, and et cetera. And, you know, I don't want it to become that ever, because I know for me personally that doesn't resonate at all. Now, I don't see any reason why I couldn't take some of the stories and lessons from the stories and draw parallels, but or even do it, you know, completely separately, you know, an actual autobiography, and then, you know, extrapolate the lessons from it. But I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but
No.
You know, I do have a lot of thoughts on that, because I like I said, I do get very frustrated listening to people again just impose their own autobiography on you know, assuming that assuming that it's going to work for your life when it's probably not 99% of the time.
Matt, we have one more minute left. I just want to ask you the last question. I noticed you gave props to Poirier, you know, for his fight, Gaethje as well. So that tells me obviously you were watching. But did you have any specific thoughts while Oliveira and Condit was playing out? Did you just sit back and enjoy it, or was it in any way frustrating that you weren't in there, or maybe a mixture of both?
Yeah, you know, I think it'd be easy to get frustrated. I think it'd be easy to, and there's no way that my mind wasn't going to sit there and analyze the two of them and be like, I could be doing this and I could be doing that. You know, one of the you know, primary things in having a strong mind, though, is not focusing on what you can't control, though. And I try to practice that in my everyday life, and you know, at that point, I had no control over it, so I had to remain neutral to it, and not let my emotions really affect me one way or another. It is what it is. I'm accepting of what has happened, you know, and again, you know, it's about making the best of it. It's not about crying over spilled milk.
Yeah. All right, my man. Hey, it's great to catch up with you. I'm glad the surgery was a success. Sounds like you're already hitting the rehab hard, and maybe late 2018, 2019, it'll be time to catch up again and preview whatever fight you're involved in. You know, we always love catching up with you pre and post fight. So anyway, folks, follow him on Twitter. I am the Immortal. And Matt, thank you very much for the time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. Anytime.
Okay, we'll see you. Folks, on Twitter, if you scroll down,
George, and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
We are about to end the show, and I didn't pull up my read. Apologies.
I just thought you liked the music
SEC
a lot.
Radios, channel 374. What is it again?
This is the type of song that George would
Here it
play
is.
guitar.
Yeah, 374. Chris Childers, Peter Burns. If you want to hear more from them, they talk about the SEC 24/7, by the way, on channel 374 and the Sirius XM app. All right, you know what? I love kicking these junkies and these twats that they have. Here's another one, Ford from Vegas. Oh, man, this guy drives me nuts sometimes.
I think he likes that, though.
I know he does. I know he does. So feeding into him is a sucker move on my end. But he does it so much that I think I'm just done with. I can't bang with these guys on Facebook, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't live on Facebook.
Okay.
So every time I go in there to go, what's Cousin Jamie up to? Or I wonder whose birthday it is. All I got is Ford left you a message. Jonathan McDonald left you a message. John Rico sent you a message. It's like, and a bunch of other fools in there that just have the time to live there, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'll look at it and go, scroll. Did my aunt, how was her vacation? Or my buddy's kid, did he score any points in his games? Or I have to scroll past all of these knuckleheads. Left you a message. This guy left you a message.
You can
mute
them.
Ford's,
You know that?
I've done that to a lot of them. There's so many of them. They just grow. Ford says I sound silly talking about a fighter being scared to fight someone. Because I told him, it's not like Khabib, like they just said, hey, let's do something that favors Khabib. Conor hasn't wanted to fight since November of 2016. He's the champ. He doesn't want to defend. Tony's hurt. So he says, well, why did Khabib have to beat the number 11? Well, if you go through like the number 3, he wasn't in camp. The number 4, he's injured. The number 5 was booked to fight the following week. I mean, they had to go to a number 11. But the reason they have to do this is because the champ won't defend. And the interim champ is hurt. Khabib showed up. He wanted to fight, and so it had been too long. That's what they needed to do. They did it. But if I sound silly saying he's hurt, then he sounds silly by them going, they gave him the belt. They didn't give him the belt. The champ didn't want to defend. So there you go. I mean, we could do this all fucking day. But luckily, we got this show, and I can just put it to bed. Get my unmute on. We're out of here, folks. Go out there and be champions.
Las Vegas.